Welcome back. We today meet Bhavik Desai. He is the head of research for AXYS Group. He's recognized in Mauritius as being one of the leading analysts in the country. We want to listen to what he feels about the current situation of the economy, but also where he feels recovery and how recovery will happen in the country. Hi Bhavik, thank you for being here today.
Thanks a lot for having me on board.
You are a lead analyst in Mauritius, if I can call it that way, and we are not in a normal situation. The COVID-19, Mauritius is getting out of it, but not the whole world, and there's a lot of worries about the future. How do you see the future?
Look, I think the future is very difficult to predict, but I think things are going to get a little, rougher in the next few months before it gets better after that. So, basically the economy has been put on an IV, if you want, where a lot of the pain hasn't been felt yet. And so I think we're going to see the pain hit in the next 6 months. But after that, of course, after the pain, everything starts to get better. And if you want, Mauritians have, in the past been resilient to that, in the sense that we've always, tried to overcome issues we've had in the past.
But we are not in normal recession. We have decided to put the world on pause. We have decided to put Mauritius on pause. Don't you think the day that we decide to switch on again, that we should go back to near normal in terms of why do you think that companies would close down? What's different?
So, look, I think there are some people who might not necessarily survive the period if they don't get the right assistance or the right aid from, the different entities. Whether it's governmental or the banks playing along in terms of working capital requirements in the short term. But beyond that, you might see some consumers changing spending patterns. For example, we might think that people might delay some luxury or more expensive items for later, or they might not make that purchase right now and delay that, or choose a cheaper alternative in certain instances, just from a more people changing their spending patterns of being a bit more conservative. Also, in terms of going back to the new normal, I don't think we're going to go back to a new normal, because one of the things that has really been pushed forward, I think, in this time is, the fact that people have embraced, at least in Mauritius, working from home, which wasn't a thing 3 months ago, 4 months ago. We did not embrace as much technology in doing things remotely before COVID, which we've been sort of forced upon us. In the past, we've seen government talks about, e-government over different budgets, but we've not really seen any big changes or major changes coming about on that front until now. I mean, in just a few quick months, you had Facile.mu that came about, which I think is an awesome website where you can basically, pay your road tax. You don't have to go in line at the post office to pay it off anymore. So just simple things like that, I think, have come out of this, which have been great.
Very true. And so innovation has happened fairly quickly, and especially from the government, where you don't really associate government with rapid innovation. Have you seen the private sector as well innovating during this time?
So I think, Mauritian are entrepreneurial by nature, right? As we say in Creole, it's a tracer. So I think you've seen that during the pandemic, in the sense that during lockdown, we ordered food and food items online that we would not have done in the past. And I think a lot of people went out of their ways to try to make delivery available and work around to find a way to be able to do that. So that's one of the things that picked up. So does that mean that, regular retail, as we've seen going down in the US, is also going to follow suit here, in the sense that, are we going to get more and more people willing to buy from websites, whether it's electronics, whether it's clothes, whether it's even food delivery items? Of course, some were better geared. I know we have several websites of certain, companies that crashed from the demand, which shows that, the demand was not there before, but there can be demand for it. And so it's just a question of the right triggers. And I think we're going to see that change.
And the change will come and it will move into technology. But I don't think that the recovery would necessarily come only from the technological sector. Where do you see the recovery coming from? Which sector do you think would be the most resilient, or that would be leading the recovery?
So I think the first sector that's going to be much more resilient, of course, is basically retail. So you're talking of, people who've delayed purchases during the time, are able to do so at the moment. So I think that's one of the first places that's going to pick up. And then, of course, you've got the different largest areas of the economy, the industries, for example, manufacturing, of course, are probably going to have to review their order books because they might not have orders right now. So that may take a while to pick up again. But then again, one of the big things that has again come out of the pandemic is, made in Mauritius. Let's try to push for local produce, local fruits, locally made things. So I think, again, in this, you can have a dichotomy where you might have people, if you encourage, local consumption again, you might have those guys pick up faster. And obviously, tourism will not be able to pick up until the borders reopen. So that's dependent on that.
Okay. Now, the recovery would happen, and you talked about innovation, you talked about this entrepreneurial way of looking at things. But would you say that the past innovation culture that we have seen in the large corporates would encourage you to say that the future looks positive, or would they have to change a bit of their mindset and not just their model to be able to innovate and make the most of the future?
Look, I think even if you look at the big groups, you've seen some, who've been trying to encourage innovation through, sort of incubators. You've seen other groups embrace a lot of technology and digital transformation, and you've seen that across a lot of them. Obviously, it might move a little slower than, smaller companies, which are more nimble. But at the same time, innovation is a mindset, and the innovation mindset for me starts from education. Having spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley, you can see that, if you're just going to, go to school and copy what's on the blackboard and put it back down for your test just to pass it, that's not going to drive innovation. It's really about, being there, wanting to learn what you're being taught, and then taking that and applying it into new things. And that's what drives innovation. And making sure that after that, you also have the mindset to ensure that you can allow those people with new ideas to thrive and come up with things.
Now, you have the benefit of meeting, discussing, and with your analytical mind, trying to find out what leaders in the country are thinking. What do you think is that mindset shift that needs to happen in the leadership of the country? I'm not just talking private sector, I'm talking public sector as well, but also civil society. What's that mindset shift that needs to happen for us to be able to bounce back and maybe make the most of this current situation?
I think one of the key things is, this extreme polarization we're seeing these days. We consume so much of our news differently these days that we get stuck in these echo chambers where we no longer have debates. You're either on my side or you're on the other side. And one of the things I expected is, whether from politicians or business leaders, is to, for a moment here, in these times of crisis, put aside differences, sit on the table, come together, and reach out across the aisle and say, okay, how do we fix this together?
So Bhavik, that's a great call for the leaders to actually get together, to think together for the collaboration of the future of the country. We are certainly at crossroads here, and we are certainly being able to define a new future. Maybe I'll ask you the last question, which I asked you initially as well. Based on everything, what's your real outlook towards the future?
Look, again, you can either look at the glass half full or half empty. Some people have been, thinking that, it's more than half empty at the moment. It's not all pessimistic. It's not all bad. I think, you need cycles come, things get worse and then they get better. So in that sense, I think, it's going to be a better world going forward. And what really needs to happen is also, while we're doing all these changes, is bringing the sustainable element to ensure that, our kids still can enjoy a beach. At least my grandchildren can enjoy a beach.
Wow.
If my kids make kids.
Bhavik, thank you very much for your support and help, your optimism towards the future. But also what I retain is that it really will depend on us and depend on how we take things going forward. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me on board, Roshan.
So that was a great call for action to our leaders to be more collaborative right now and to collectively think of a new macroeconomic model for the country that will not just help us get out of the economic situation, but also build a new sustainable model for the country. Let's see how all this pans out until the future. Until next time, you keep safe.